It's what he promised on the campaign trail, which was to drill, baby, drill and unleash American energy production. It's reasonable to ask at $75 WTI and 380 Henry Hub what the emergency is, but they're going to use every authority that they have, including some extreme ones, maybe the Defense Production Act or something, to surge as much oil and gas production as possible. We're going to see a lot of headlines about energy dominance in the next few days, and I think it's useful to just remind ourselves of what actually moves the needle. He's going to issue an executive order and open a lot of the federal offshore drilling in areas that these oil prices will send a huge amount of interest from the oil industry in drilling in the first place. Lift the pause on LNG exports that affect projects maybe a decade from now. The U.S. is already doubling LNG export capacity in just the next couple of years. The things that will affect energy markets more immediately are what does he do with the Russia sanctions that Biden left him? How hard do you go after Iran, Venezuela? Those are the things that could really push up oil prices, which could increase production, but also run in tension with his promise to bring energy prices down.
So what type of price reaction should we expect to see in the first half of 2025 as we see these executive orders taking effect, but also the uncertainty around those Russian sanctions that you mentioned?
Well, I think if anything, there's like a little bit of bullishness right now. Both you're going to see efforts to deregulate, as Richard Edelman was just talking about, and some people might look at the ability to bring more supply on the market. But these Russia oil sanctions are actually quite serious, and President Biden did them, the Biden administration, with a gift out the door in a way that requires Congress to do a review to reverse. We know that the Trump administration is going to put maximum pressure on Iran. That could be up to 1 million barrels a day, although I think it's going to be harder this time than it was last time. We know Secretary of State, presumably Rubio, is going to want to take a hard line toward Venezuela. All of these things are bullish for oil prices, as well as looking at the macroeconomy and what tariffs might do. That could cut in the other direction.
Indeed. And one of the other things you mentioned, Jason, was the fact that Trump is going to reverse this pause on new LNG export licenses to major markets. Who do you think stands to benefit the most from the reversal of these Biden-era climate policies?
Yeah, well, there's a broad set of Biden-era climate policies, but on that one in particular, it is this one issue has gotten a little bit blown out of proportion. We should remember what Biden administration did, which is pause licenses for new LNG export permits. We've already had a huge amount of LNG export permits given, and there are already projects underway where the U.S. is going to double export capacity roughly in the next couple of years. That's a massive amount of gas that we're going to put in the market. There are a handful of projects waiting for permits. Those are the ones that will benefit the most by this pause being lifted. We know that big buyers around the world, Europe in particular, is facing high energy prices this winter, and they need that U.S. LNG and that certainty that it's going to come in. I do think for all the talk of what LNG exports would do to domestic prices and whether the Biden administration would favor that for impacts in 2050, the actual tension between promises to bring energy prices down and what it looks like to increase U.S. gas demand 15-20% between power generation for artificial intelligence and LNG exports, that's going to be a near-term problem, not a long-term problem. And it'd actually be the Trump administration, ironically, that might face some hard choices about whether we want to send U.S. energy halfway around the world, but face periods of time where U.S. consumers are paying more as a result of that, or actually try to keep U.S. energy at home.